By now, you guys probably know I'm a big fan of using benzoyl peroxide for treating acne. In fact, it is an ingredient I incorporate into my daily routine to help control my acne. Now, there's so many benzoyl peroxide products out there now on the market, so it may be confusing on what to use, especially if you have more sensitive skin. Well, today, we're gonna take a deeper dive into how to select the right benzoyl peroxide products for your skin to help treat your acne, and also share with you some of my favorite BPO products. Hi, my name is Dr. Jenny Liu. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So before we jump into how to pick and my favorite products, I want to just briefly talk about benzoyl peroxide. Benzoyl peroxide is a great antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory ingredient. And really, of all the acne ingredients or products that have been marketed towards treating acne, it is really one of the few that have a substantial amount of clinical studies and evidence in treating acne. And in fact, that is what I really recommend to my patients that come to see me in clinic when they're having mild acne, and what I recommend to my followers on social media if they have mild acne and can't get in to see a dermatologist. Benzoyl peroxide is also really helpful not only for facial acne, but also body acne on the chest and the back, as well as folliculitis in the groin area. And as a dermatologist, I often will prescribe benzoyl peroxide cleanser to my patients who have a condition called hidradenitis suppurativa, which is an inflammatory condition affecting sweat glands, namely located in the underarms, under the breast, and in the groin and buttock area. So benzoyl peroxide really is a versatile, multifunctional ingredient, which is why I love it so much as a dermatologist, not only for acne treatment, but for treating so many other inflammatory conditions. So aside from treating acne, there are a few other unique uses for benzoyl peroxide. Number one, it can help to reduce body odor. So for those individuals who are not interested in using an antiperspirant for whatever reason, you can consider using a benzoyl peroxide wash in the shower to your underarms, and that will help to reduce the bacteria that causes body odor. Similarly, if you have smelly feet, it's the same concept. It's often caused by bacteria that kind of eat the dead skin as well as the sweat. And so using a benzoyl peroxide cleanser too can help with smelly feet or foot odor. Now let's talk a little bit about the ingredients, how to pick the ingredients, as well as what should you consider when picking a benzoyl peroxide formulation. So number one, we know that benzoyl peroxide of all various concentrations are effective. What I mean by that, over the counter, you can find benzoyl peroxide from 2.5 to 10% formulation. We know that all of them really work similarly as far as the efficacy in doing what it's supposed to do. Furthermore, the higher the concentration, the potential higher risk for irritation. So in general, when I recommend a benzoyl peroxide product, whether it's a cleanser or a spot leave-on treatment, I just tell my patients go with a 2.5 to 5% formulation. Additionally, a few other things you want to keep in mind when you're picking up benzoyl peroxide product is number one, benzoyl peroxide can potentially bleach fabric, so bleaching towels, pillowcases, and clothing, especially those leave-on treatments, because they're going to stay on your skin and inevitably become rubbed off on your pillowcase or clothing. Two, benzoyl peroxide will degrade certain retinoids as well as vitamin C, and particularly retinol, retinaldehyde, as well as tretinoin. The only retinoid that has been shown to work well with benzoyl peroxide together without being deactivated is adapalene. Thirdly, when it comes to products, we do know that cleansers have very comparable, similar efficacy to leave-on treatments, but because cleansers are washed off, they're not on your skin for as long of a time, it tends to be less irritating. So those are kind of few things to consider when it comes to picking benzoyl peroxide products. So now let's jump into my favorite products, and I really have something for all skin types. I'm mostly going to talk about cleansers because that is how I incorporate them into my routine and really my favorite way of using benzoyl peroxide. But I will also share a few spot treatments that I find to be less irritating, especially for me. So starting off with cleansers, I'm going to go from the most gentle to ones that I think are going to cleanse more effectively and more suitable for oily skin. So the first one I'm going to talk about is from Cetaphil, their Clear Complexion-Clearing BPO Acne Cleanser. This is probably the most gentle benzoyl peroxide cleanser I think that exists on the market. First of all, it has 2.6% micronized benzoyl peroxide. Micronized benzoyl peroxide just means it's a little more gentle delivery of BPO. 2.6% is an effective concentration. In addition, it contains liquid licorice root that can soothe the skin, as well as zinc that can help work synergistically with BPO in reducing inflammation and bacteria. Texture-wise, this is really, really creamy, which is why I say it's the most gentle benzoyl peroxide cleanser on the market, because it is almost like a cream cleanser. And to be honest, I definitely don't recommend using this as a cleanser to clean your skin. I find that this is more effective as like a cleansing treatment, especially for those of you who wear makeup. You definitely want to consider doing double cleansing, like using a cleansing oil or cleansing balm before using this benzoyl peroxide cleanser, just to make sure that you're adequately removing all the residue and makeup sunscreen from your skin before you go ahead and use this cleanser. Because I don't actually feel, because of how creamy this cleanser is, that it does a good job at cleansing the skin, but the benzoyl peroxide ingredient in here is great at helping with acne. But since you're washing it off, it's going to be far less irritating. So because of that, I think this is amazing cleanser for those who have rosacea prone skin, super sensitive, super dry skin, who want to use a benzoyl peroxide product but either fear that may be irritating. This is the one for you. This is the one that you want to go with. The next cleanser that I want to recommend is the one from Cerave, Cerave's Acne Foaming Cleanser. And this one I've talked about many times, and really is the first BPO cleanser that is really on the market that was developed for dry and sensitive skin. So this cleanser will always have a place in my heart. And it's really the one I have been using the past few years, until recently more brands have been formulating benzoyl peroxide in a more gentle product. But this one I love because it contains, number one, 4% benzoyl peroxide. And just because it's a little bit higher in concentration compared to the Cetaphil, I personally do not find it to be more irritating. I actually find that 4% works really well for me. Two, it contains hyaluronic acid, essential ceramides, and niacinamide all together to kind of support the skin barrier and reduce irritation from that benzoyl peroxide ingredient. Now, texture-wise, it is still more of a creamy cleanser. It is less creamy than the one from Cetaphil, and it does sud a little bit, but certainly I don't feel like it is really truly a foaming cleanser in my mind. But again, I personally love this because it is less thick of a texture, if that makes sense. So I personally find that when I rinse it off, I don't appreciate any residue, where sometimes I actually do with a Cetaphil one. But as far as how to pick between the two, I think they're both great if you have dry and sensitive skin. But if you have super sensitive skin and you've already tried this one from Cerave or other benzoyl peroxide cleansers and you just can't tolerate those other ones, then I think certainly Cetaphil would be a great alternative to try. And if you want another creamy benzoyl peroxide cleanser, then you really should check out the one from Inkey. Their Supersolutions 5% benzoyl peroxide cleanser. Inkey came out with a new Supersolutions line that contains different ingredients, and this one is one actually of my favorite from that line. I love it because number one, it's creamy, it's gentle, it contains an effective concentration of benzoyl peroxide, and 5% with this concentration, I don't find it more irritating than the Cetaphil one or the Cerave one. Also contains 5% glycerin and hyaluronic acid to help hydrate your skin while you're cleansing. It is more creamy than foaming, so again here, I feel that it's great for those with more dry and sensitive skin. So just another option for you guys out there who's looking for a creamy benzoyl peroxide cleanser that's less irritating, more suitable for sensitive and dry skin. All right, moving on. If you are looking for a benzoyl peroxide that have more of a lather, that foams a little bit more, say if you have more oily to combination skin, the one that you can consider that is effective as a cleanser but is not going to be irritating on the skin is one from Naturium, the benzoyl peroxide cream cleanser 5%. As the name implies, this contains 5% benzoyl peroxide along with N-acetylglucosamine, an amino sugar that has some skin brightening properties. Texture-wise, this does apply like a creamy cleanser, but does lather quite well, but not overly aggressive where your skin feels stripped at the end. I love this one on days where I just want a little more lather on my skin, and because it does foam a little more readily, I think this is more suitable for individuals who have more combination to oily skin. I have been using this really pretty religiously as my benzoyl peroxide cleanser right now, and I certainly have not had any issue with irritation. However, one thing I would caution you guys, because of the foaming action, for some some reason in particular, this one, as I'm rinsing off, if I somehow get it a little bit into my eyes, it does burn. And I don't use benzoyl peroxide, and you shouldn't use benzoyl peroxide around your eyes. But for some reason, this formulation does cause a little bit of sting and burning sensation if I am not careful with closing my eyes all the way as I'm rinsing it off. Whereas I haven't really had an issue with the other cleansers. For some reason, this just irritates my eyes a little bit, but it does not irritate it to the point where like I'm getting a rash from it. So with any benzoyl peroxide cleanser, you just want to make sure that you avoid washing your eyelids with it first and foremost. But two, keep your eyes closed as you're rinsing that off, and make sure you do rinse it off thoroughly before you move on to the rest of your skincare routine. So the next BPO cleanser I want to mention is really one that also has a lot of history with me, in the sense it's really the benzoyl peroxide cleanser that I used for years until Cerave came out with theirs. And it really worked well for me, for my skin at that time. And it's the one from Neutrogena, their clear pore cleanser / mask. I used this one throughout college into, early parts of a medical school. At that time, my skin was definitely more combination, leaning towards that oily side. Now, maybe with age and, hormone fluctuations, my skin is definitely more sensitive and dry. But at that time, really that benzoyl peroxide worked miracles for me for my acne. So I think this is a great cleanser for a few reasons. Number one, it contains 2.5% benzoyl peroxide, effective concentration of BPO, but also it's more of a clay texture, which because of the kaolin ingredient, the kaolin clay, it helps kind of soak up some of that excess sebum on the surface. So because of that, I really think this is great for those with more combination oily skin. The other thing I really like about this cleanser / mask, as the name implies, you can use it as a cleanser or leave it on for a little bit longer, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, as a kind of acne clay mask if you wanted to. I certainly still use it intermittently these days, but I think my skin barrier, especially where I'm still continuing to use mask at work on a regular basis, is just I have a harder time using that product on a daily basis. But that is one I highly recommend, especially if you're looking for an acne mask to do once a week, or say if you have oily skin and you want to have a cleanser that is going to help with excess sebum along with treating acne. I think that the Neutrogena one is a great option to consider. All right, the last cleanser I want to talk about or recommend is one from Panoxyl, their acne foaming wash that contains 10% benzoyl peroxide. So you're probably like, wait, hold up, I thought you don't like higher concentration. Well, normally I don't for the face, unless you've been using a 10% benzoyl peroxide wash like the one from Panoxyl and tolerating it well. But I just find for myself and for a lot of people, especially if you're incorporating a topical retinoid and other acne treatments in your routine already, I tend to recommend the lower concentration. But if you use the 10%, you don't have an issue, then certainly go with it. The reason why I'm recommending this one from Panoxyl is, number one, it's pretty affordable. And two, I actually recommend this for those who suffer from acne on the chest and back and the groin too. I find that skin in these areas tend to be more tolerant of higher concentration first and foremost. And two, when you're using it on larger surface areas, you tend to go through it pretty quickly. And so here, like I said, it's more affordable, which is why I'm recommending it for the use of body acne, or say even if you want to use it on your underarms and not developing irritation to it. Or again, I recommend this to my patients who suffer from hidradenitis suppurativa and need a more affordable acne foaming cleanser that they can use on a regular basis. I highly recommend checking this one out. The other thing I forgot to mention is really interesting. Panoxyl actually has a published study on their formulation. In the sense, as I mentioned earlier, benzoyl peroxide, the reason why we know cleansers work similarly to leave-on treatments is that short contact therapy, meaning products, ingredients that are on your skin in shorter contact time, have similar benefits as leave-on. And so Panoxyl actually is one of the brands that have demonstrated their ingredient can kill bacteria in 15 seconds or less. So it kind of really speaks to, number one, the efficacy of this product, but two, in general, why we say benzoyl peroxide in that short contact therapy, namely in a cleanser formulation, can have a similar efficacy but far less irritation than leave-on spot treatments. That is pretty much it for the cleansers. I do want to shout out 2 spot treatments that I use myself intermittently and I recommend to my followers and patients that I find to be less irritating. How I recommend using spot treatments for benzoyl peroxide is really to spot treat. Very few individuals can tolerate applying benzoyl peroxide all over their face while using a topical retinoid at the same time. If you're one of those individuals, certainly continue. You may even have gotten a prescription from your dermatologist that contains a combination of adapalene and benzoyl peroxide, and it does work really well, but it's just extremely irritating. So in general, I recommend using benzoyl peroxide as spot treatments to more quickly kind of reduce those red, angry pimples that may pop up intermittently. So if you're looking for a benzoyl peroxide product to treat acne all over or to use more for prevention, then this is where I think the cleansers are going to be the better way to go because they're going to be less irritating. Anywho, getting back to the 2 products I recommend for spot treatment. One is from the Roche-Posay Effaclar Duo. I like this one because it contains 5.5% micronized benzoyl peroxide as well as lipohydroxy acid, a gentle exfoliating acid that can work together to help reduce inflammation, acne, and help with some pore congestion. I think texture-wise, this is a creamy spot treatment that once you apply to your acne absorbs pretty nicely. It doesn't feel sticky, so you can certainly use it in the morning or say at night as tolerated with your topical retinoid, assuming you're only using adapalene as your retinoid. If you do use a prescription retinoid like tretinoin, or say you don't have a prescription but you're using a retinol, then you definitely want to space out the application of this with those products. Then you probably want to use this in the morning and then use your retinoid at night. But this one, I find that for me at the very least, it works pretty quickly at reducing inflammatory acne. I do have to be careful about the frequency of use. I can't use this on a nightly basis. So I kind of will spot treat like every other night to like a stubborn pimple for like a week or 2. If I overuse this, especially when I'm still using a topical retinoid at night, I do develop a little bit of burning sensation as well as kind of post-inflammatory marks from the irritation of just benzoyl peroxide in general. But of all the spot treatments that I have used containing benzoyl peroxide, this is one that I find to be a little more better suited for my skin. So the last product I want to mention is one from Neutrogena again, and it's their Stubborn Acne AM treatment that contains 2.5% micronized benzoyl peroxide. So even though this name has AM treatment in there, you certainly don't need to use it in the morning. Obviously, as I mentioned, if you use a retinoid that is degraded by benzoyl peroxide, then certainly use this in the morning. Otherwise, you could consider using this at night along with your adapalene as tolerated. In general, like I said, I don't recommend using them together, but it's one of those things where don't let the name get to you. Have flexibility in how you use it. You just have to understand what you can use it with and what you can't. I like this one because it contains a lower concentration of benzoyl peroxide, although from my skin personally, I find them to be similar as far as like the efficacy, but also in inducing irritation. I just, in general, my skin don't tolerate leave-on treatments very well, which is why I use cleansers every night. But this is just another option for those who is interested in a fairly gentle spot treatment that works well. Now, if you don't know where to start and how to pick between the 2, I always kind of defer going with the lower concentration and seeing how your skin does with it. Texture-wise, the 2 are very similar, kind of a creamy formulation, but again, both absorbs very nicely with a non-greasy, almost like a mattifying finish. And I would say that is the same with the Roche-Posay as well. So layers really nicely under moisturizer as well as sunscreen. All right, guys, so that is a breakdown of benzoyl peroxide and my recommended products for treating acne. If you use any of these products and have worked well for you, please comment below and let me know. Also, what other benzoyl peroxide products have you tried that you really like? Let me know in the comments as well. Again, I would greatly appreciate it if you can give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys next time. Bye.